Well, good morning. Welcome back to your pre-Christmas Eve edition of Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host Anne, and disembodied voice Justin, and Kiri, who is currently wandering around the house, probably going to eat her food just to spite me because she wouldn't eat all morning. Even though it had chicken legs in it. I just can't win. I can't win, guys. Today is a can't win day, except I have to turn that around into a can win day, right? We can't sit there and say it's one of those days. We've got to make it a better day than that. No negativity allowed here. How are y'all? How are y'all? Christmas Eve tomorrow. Finally. The holidays will be over soon. I can't think of it that way. Yeah, happy holidays, Coops. That's it. That's it. We're not going to call it the third Monday of the week. We're going to call it the pre-Christmas Eve. That's what we're going to call it. Hey there, Bob and Julie. Happy holidays to you guys, too. Glad to see you on. Today is the day we wish all of our Reaper fan base happy holidays. I'm going to try to put Justin in my ear so that he can actually talk without echoing, guys. I got the plug to work the other day, so let's see if we can get it going. Hey, Justin, talk.
Testing.
Okay, great. Yes. I don't know what it is. It's probably just this laptop is getting older long in the tooth, and so it definitely has like the jig, the thingy outlet is just a little bit wonky these days. But that's okay. Hey guys. So yeah, what are you guys doing today? Anything special, or is all your holidayness crammed into tomorrow and the day after? Yo, Chia. Love to you too. I made chocolate sugar cookie dough yesterday. So today is when I get to bake the sugar cookie dough. So this is later this afternoon after I get some stuff done for the Patreon. That's my reward for getting things done on the 23rd. And sorry to you guys that I canceled my D&D stream yesterday. I had so much that I just didn't get done. And I'm like, I don't want to stress through Christmas. So I'm going to take the afternoon here to do this. So thanks for understanding. You guys are awesome. All right. Hey guys, it's Rock Troll. If I was smart, I would have picked a holiday mini for today, but like we had our schedule, so it's like I guess I could put a little Santa hat on him or something. Except I don't have the cotton or I don't have a tiny Santa hat. Wait, yes I do, but no, I don't. I thought I had one on a Christmas ornament, but no. How's it going, Crowley? So we're gonna mix some stuff today. We're gonna do the bone here, I think, and I want some nice brown. Which will probably base off of the orange. So you guys remember, if you remember this model from long ago, I could paint a candy cane and then paint over it. That's a great idea, Everlina. Or a snowflake or something festive. I can't do a reindeer. It's not big enough. So if you remember, guys, back in the beginning, back in the dawn times, when we started this model, we were using a very kind of a limited palette approach. I mean, not severely, but we were trying to use the Dungeon Dwellers paints from the original Dungeon Dwellers box sets, which are now members of the Bones line. I think you can still get them in the sets, but you can also get them individually. So things like Kobold Scale, Goblin Skin, Dungeon Gray, Eldritch Purple, Ogre Skin, and Spectral, or Vampiric Mist, sorry. Morning, Inara. So I've thought about that, and I wanted to continue it. I know I can mix a pretty good brown using my orange and red and my gray and a bit of white. So I was like, I think I'm going to do that and make kind of a good leather color, and then I can highlight it with the orange and kind of tie it in with him. But I also want to make a bone color for this big bone here. Change all the gems to red and green. Yeah, muses. Yeah, that sounds great. No. After all the work I did, you guys would have to sit here staring at Rock Troll for, all the time it took to make them red and green, and then all the time it took to switch them back to purple because I don't want red and green gems. No. We're not doing that. We're not. You're permitted to joke about it in the spirit of holiday festivities. Festiveness. Something like that. All right, so if we're going to make a bone color, where do we start? So we're talking mixing again today. See, I've been talking mixing with you guys a lot lately. Because that's where I am. That's where my head is recently. So, yeah, let's mix. Let's do lots of mixing. And to show you how versatile, like, this set of colors really is. Because, I mean, if you look at it, the only thing you lack in these colors is a blue. Like, you've got a couple of different greens that are not on screen right now. But you've got a great swamp green with the troll flesh. And then you've got the lighter knoll hide. So you've got some decent greens, especially because the troll flesh, if you add yellow to it, it brightens up pretty well, as you can see from this. So you've got good greens, you've got a very good purple, you've got a very good yellow, you've got muted reds and oranges, and you've got a near black, and you've got a near white. So in reality, this is not a bad palette. You're never going to get any blue out of it, obviously, but, you know, it's not a bad palette to be working with if you're looking for a limited palette treatment. And if you wanted to, you know, throw a curveball into it, you could grab a random blue. I would probably grab a somewhat muted one to go with this. And then you could have like a spectrum from red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and that you could paint almost anything with. Like, it would change the style of your painting because you'd be limited as to your saturation. Like, you'd never have a really bright red. You'd never have a really bright orange. But you can mix an awful lot with that. So it can be an interesting exercise sometimes, guys, to do that. Yeah, he's almost done, though. Look, Xander. Remember, when I'm only painting him in, like, hour and a half long segments, it does take a while. Well, he's a massive model. But we are finally to the point where even his nails are done, and now we just have to work on his belt, and I'll probably do a fancy base on him. I'm still thinking about a fancy base. Yeah, also, Xander, you got to remember that he's in a rotation with 5 other models. And even more. You know, previously I would ignore him for weeks if I didn't feel like painting him. So, but now he's in a rotation with 5 other models, which means he's only getting work done every 6th day. So, what's up, Kier? You be a good girl. Gotta keep an eye on Kiri. She's got unpredictable butt today. You were happy with it until just now. This, to be honest, is the happiest I've been with a model that I've painted for a while, actually, I think. As far as, like, testing myself and trying a new technique and, you know, doing limited palette, which I actually love to do. I love limiting my palette and making myself mix more. I think I get much more unique results that way. But yeah, so this one is very much, has had a lot of work go into it, Xander, so, you know, don't be too hard on your troll. Plus, this is just a great sculpt. If your troll is not this troll, it can be hard for that troll to stand up to this troll, because this is a wicked good troll. Let us not, who sculpted Rock Troll? I don't see. It's not on the card. Dang it. Okay, for the record, Justin, I don't like it when there's no sculptor on the card. Who sculpted Rock Troll? Was it Weeby? Or was it Chris?
Let me see.
Or was it somebody completely different? Thanks, Isilodon. He's cool. Yeah, he's getting so close to done. We have to decide what cool basing to put on him. Yeah, I really, really like him. And we are definitely... I still have to do his little eyeballs in yellow, but other than that, yellow or red. But otherwise, yeah, he's looking great. Yes.
It was Weeby.
It was Weeby. Okay, so yeah, so this is a Jason sculpt. And we were just talking the other day about how Jason, like, once he learned ZBrush, like, transformed into, like, Super Saiyan sculptor. And that is absolutely true here. This is a fantastic model. So, whoa, Tashi. How are the paint by numbers, Tashi, going? I know you were being ambitious. And I haven't checked my other Discord for a while. I was thinking a cave base of some sort, Isilodon, but if we add more crystals to the base, that's just more crystals to paint. And I don't know, I mean, maybe a couple? But I don't want the base to outshine the troll. Like, you gotta kind of watch it. You gotta think about that balance, right? Now, it would, if I put some crystals on the floor, it certainly would allow me to work the purple into the flooring, and that would be cool. So that'd be a good one. Only half done and past the deadline for varnish. There will be champagne for New Year's Eve. All right, Tashi. Good. That's a good attitude. Well, it was a really ambitious goal, like, right? Like, you gotta kind of, like, just look at that point, it's like, don't get down on yourself that you didn't finish it, but just look at how much you actually did finish and go, darn, when I bust my butt, I can get stuff done. So, cool. No negativity. This is Bones... No, this one's out. He's been out for a while, Isilodon. He is actually one of the first Bones Black models that we ever released. He was the second one. 44002. So he's actually been out for a while, and was a great opportunity to paint a bunch of crystals, both large and small. So yeah, so now we're finally down to just his little accessories, which is awesome. And then, like I said, I have to figure out what base he'll fit on, and what I can do about either just using this one and changing it, or if I'm going to sculpt up kind of over it and integrate it into an even bigger base. I'm not certain yet. I haven't actually looked at my bases to see if he will fit on anything reasonable. So, because he's too big even for the Mega Block, I think. Mega Block being Mega Block. The 2-inch, would he fit? No, I'd have to actually cut off pieces of his base. See, he's just immense. So that kind of argues for maybe just building up areas, like puttying over and building up areas on his base to make it more interesting. Yeah, the skin was in several episodes. What you want to do is go to the first ever episode of Celadon, I think. Maybe first and second. But what I did on the first and second is I made these dramatic shadow effect. Like I showed people, you know, because he's got this lighting effect where the light is clearly falling on this side and he's in shadow on the other side. And I think that's what makes this model so good at this point, is part of why I'm so happy with it, is that I went for that, the dramatic lighting. So yeah, definitely go back and watch. He's one that, like, when you get later on, it might get a little bit repetitive. I'm talking a lot about how light falls on this model, though. All right, so let us go for leather and bone. If I was going to make a bone color, you first have to think about what color bone is, and it's kind of yellowish, and it's light, right? So we're going to grab right away, if we're going to mix a handmade bone. The advantage of doing a limited palette thing like this, by the way, just as an aside, is that it means that the bone is going to have the same like colors and pigments in it as this orange in his on his hands and his nose and his feet, and that's going to kind of make them all work a little bit together. So when you do this, you have less risk, even though it's a little more work. It's less risk of your colors clashing, because everything is gonna like have a little bit of the previous thing. So we know it's mostly really light, and we know it is got a hint of yellow in it. Now, our Vampiric Mist here does have a little black in it, which would normally shift this a little green, so we make it a greenish bone. But this also has a little purple in it, which is a complement to the yellow, so it should gray out. So we're probably going to end up with kind of a grayish-green bone, which would be interesting. If it's too green, then I'm going to add a little warmth to it, and the most obvious way to do that is with the color closest to brown, and that would be goblin skin. So, since we're using a limited palette here. So let us try that. Let us do a 1-drop. Keep you guys in focus here. A 1-drop of Ogre, if it's going to come out of its bottle today. It is that kind of Christmas Eve. So are you guys making special Christmas dinner? Do you open your, here's one. Do you open your presents on Christmas Eve or Christmas? I grew up being a Christmas morning, part of a Christmas morning family that was very stringent about it. But I had friends who opened them on Christmas Eve. So what camp are you in? Then tell me about your dinner plans, because that's what's going to make everybody hungry. and this wouldn't be an Ann stream if we didn't make everybody hungry. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 drops of white. I made a little flower. Christmas morning. Oh, one on Christmas Eve and the rest Christmas morning. Oh, that's good, Xandercles. That's nice. It gives you a little taste, right? Christmas morning, having a Christmas Eve dinner. Okay. Christmas Day. Yeah, lockdown. Morning. Oh, you get both. Well, that's at least 1 plus if you have to have that kind of like not great situation. But double presents. That's what we have to think about. Oh, interesting. Oh, okay. I see. Evelina, that's kind of cool. That's kind of a cool way to do it. Neat. There's all sorts of it. I like how you guys are, like, everybody does it a little different. Yeah, right. We used to do, right, Chibi. We used to do Christmas morning with the family, and then when we had relatives come over, we'd have a second round of Christmas. Or we would drive up to our relatives' houses, I was about an hour and a half, 2 hours away, and we would have family, extended family Christmas, right? Turkey dinner to follow. Right. The biggest gifts definitely arrived overnight from Santa. Yeah, totally. I pulled the trigger on a prime rib yesterday, so I bought us a very, very tasty looking prime rib. So I'm gonna do that. And it's much bigger than it needs to be for 2 people. I mean, it's not gigantic, but it's definitely like double what we needed. But hey, that means leftovers, and I happen to believe that prime rib has makes amazing leftovers. And then you can make prime rib soup from the bones and the leftover meat. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you won't get your prime rib chibi. I'll think of you. Should I put a picture of it on the Discord, or is that just rubbing it in? Oh, huevos rancheros, so tasty. Oh, your wife makes really good ones. That's awesome. I haven't quite gotten my recipe down, Xandercles. I can make a passable huevos rancheros, but I make a decent migas, which is close, right? Yes, put a picture on the Patreon. Okay. Yeah, and red and green chili is Christmas. Obviously, you've been to Santa Fe. That's what they call it up there. Christmas keto lasagna. And Wonder Woman in the theater. Nice. Chicken tortilla soup. Yeah, my family is also an appetizers for all of Christmas Day. Like, we just open the junk food and we just eat it until Christmas dinner. David probably totally will disapprove of this practice, but, like, it's how I grew up. It maybe explains some of the eating problems in some portions of my family. Although we don't do it every day. It really is a holiday thing. But David's probably going to be horrified when I, like, rip open, like, all the goodies tomorrow and proceed to eat them throughout the day. But yeah, so all right, so we have made way too yellow of a color at this point, but this is okay because now we can darken it and it can be our shadow. You live in Albuquerque, so yeah, totally Xandercles. Yeah, I never knew that red and green chili together on a dish were referred to as Christmas until I started going to Santa Fe for business, and then I was like, this is brilliant, especially when they give it to you for breakfast in the middle of summer, and it's still Christmas. Oh, see, we have a duck. Yeah, I have a duck for New Year's too in our. I have a duck frozen, and we almost were going to make it Christmas, but then I realized that prime rib is available now, but it might be harder to get around New Year's because it is a more traditional New Year's. So I thought I would go for the since the duck is frozen and can be pulled out any time. I thought that I would just go for the other. All right, so we're gonna add a little bit of orange to that in the place of brown. Pizza and treats. That's good. You tend to be a ham fan. I've got a lot of pork. I just made a Chinese 5-spice pork shoulder just the other day for dinner. We're actually having the leftovers of it tonight. All right, so now we've got something that is closer, but it's still an orangey yellow. So what do we need to do? We probably need to add a little black, right? We want to mute that. It's too bright to be bone. Oh yeah, margarita pizza equals green is red, green, and white. Perfect. Totally Christmas pizza. Oh no, Mad Zeke, I'm so sorry. Oh, right, exactly. Yeah, I'm not a big ham fan. It's weird. I've only gotten to appreciate pork as I got older and learned to make like pork shoulder and pork loin roast and things like that. Like now and pork belly. So now I'm getting better at doing those roasts and doing ribs and all that kind of thing. And now I'm much better with pork. Budget Christmas. Ooh, sweet potatoes and green beans. The green bean casserole. I love it. And dinner rolls. Yeah, good, Dragon. Still, I didn't do gifts for some of my family this year. Although then my brother surprised me and sent me a gift card, so that turkey. Now I have to dig out something. Yeah. Ooh, great potato and spaghetti squash gratin. Damn. Nice. You guys are awesome. You're pros. Now you're distracting me from painting. Like, we're not going to get any painting done today. All right, so I dropped some Dungeon Gray in. And that's my sub for black. And black is something that I would add to take this a little bit more grayish, right? Or brownish. Because remember, oranges are muted browns, right? So we added just a touch of the Dungeon Gray. And it's going to push us further toward kind of a muted yellowy brown. And that's what I want. Kind of brownish yellow. Just you and your mom. Yeah, that makes sense. Ooh, pierogies. Oh, I love pierogies. Like, pierogies are possibly the thing I miss most about being, like, gluten-free and low carb. But I used to eat pierogies, like, every day. Oh, wow. Neat, Tashi. That's pretty cool. It's a cool tradition. Yeah. All right. More gray, because I didn't quite shift it as dark as I want. I gotta be careful, though. I'm trying to make a bone shadow color. And I don't want it to go too green. So we're getting closer now with that big blob of gray. I think I need to warm it up just a little. And once we have the color mixed, guys, even though it's going to be too dark, I can take that, transfer it over to the next thingy, and add some white to it. So now I'm just fine-tuning. Yeah, pierogies are wonderful. I did used to adore them. Okay, now I'm talking. This is much better. All right, so after I added more Dungeon Gray and a little bit more orange, now I've got a brown that can work. So I'm going to transfer some of that over here, throw some Vampiric Mist in it, and see if I can lighten it up to a bone color that I like. So about a brushful or two, and then some of our Vampiric Mist, which is our closest thing to white. It may still be a little bit yellow, but I think I'm liking it. I think I would take the shadow a little bit browner at this point. But I think that's a good bone color right there. That's pretty good. So excellent. I'm liking this. This is why you eat lunch before this show. Yes. I'm sorry, not sorry. I am going to take this just a little bit more brown. A little bit more of that. A little bit more of that. I forgot that my yellow, the thing is, the reason we're having to push this so far in the other direction, guys, is that this ogre skin is loaded with like a double load of 2 different kinds of yellows. So it is, it's really potent. Yeah, okay, so that darkened that down a lot. That's much better. I still feel like I need to go a little bit more orange. But essentially what you're dealing with now is that bone color is yellow and orange or brown and white, and maybe a touch of black if you feel like it's too vibrant. You can mix your own bone color out of the colors that you use on the other part of the figure, thus guaranteeing that your bone color will work pretty harmoniously with the rest of the figure. Now, given bone is usually pretty neutral, so you seldom run into a place where you really mix or have a bad bone color that clashes, but it can happen. I just like to mix. Nice. Yeah, workout after for sure. All right, I'm going to go with this and see if I can make it work. So I've got a middle bone color here and a shadow there. And now I'm going to actually make an even lighter bone color. So I have a triad. So essentially I've made my own triad out of my colors that I used on the rest of the figure. And but you do notice that the easiest thing to do if you're trying to create your own triad is to start with your dark, intense color and then slowly lighten it until you've got a good triad. And because you're always using a little bit of the previous color and then adding white, your triad will always work together great. So, making your own triads 101 by Anne. Merry Christmas. I'm going to put a lot of water in that because that one, of course, a very light color is going to take a lot more water to thin down. And we have our bone triad. Now, what I did figure out from this is that if I want to make a brown, like a leathery brown for like his belt and stuff, I'm going to need to use a lot more orange and a lot more of this in addition to my yellow. Or I'd have to do what I did with if you remember the Fire Giant skin color, I used a little bit of red with that as well. And that helped as well. Because the yellow is just so strong in this set. So that is one thing to keep in mind. But let's deal with our bone. So let's do our base color. Yeah, that's going to be a really nice yellow bone color, actually. Let me get close now that we've got our colors. And let's get in focus. And let's do some bone texture. If you've only been painting a couple months, I'm trying to parse your elite name. Persart? I'm not a natural reader of Leet, but what I usually tell people is that I recommend you get both kinds of palettes. The problem, what you'll get with a wet palette is you'll be able to blend pretty easily and you'll be able to work pretty fast. But if you're trying to do really fine stuff with really thin paint, then you're going to be frustrated because the wet palette is made to wick water into and out of the paint. So pretty much with a wet palette, you're mixing every brush full of paint yourself. And when you're a painter who's experienced, that's not a problem. But when you're a brand new painter, that can get really frustrating. So kind of assess, right? If you try a lot of stuff and you feel like you're not getting great results, you might want to try using a different palette for a while. The reason I recommend that is that when you use a palette like the Well palette, you can keep track of how many drops of water you're adding. And what that does, although a lot of painters will tell you it's a crutch, but what it does is it allows you as a new person to get a feel for how thin you want the paint to be for each type of technique. Because there's definite differences. You don't just paint with the same paint consistency for every technique. Also, if you're going to like do stuff like build a wash, you're going to want to do that on a well palette and not a wet palette. So the short answer is, yeah, if you're using a wet palette, you shouldn't add water because it's just going to wick down into your sponge and it's not going to stay at the consistency you need. So I'm just wet blending a little bit of my shadow here. I do need to keep in mind the light falling. So I want a dark shadow on the underside of this. So I think I'm going to have to mix an even darker shadow. But yeah, what I always recommend for new people, purse art, is to get both. Get both types of palettes. Just go for it. And then play with them. I mean, I started out using a well palette, and so I very much favor that. I'll admit that straight up front because I like to control my paint consistency, and I do a lot of like really fine detail stuff, and I do a lot of smooth blending. So for me, being able to control my paint consistency to get the results I want is key. Whereas if you're looking for a more artistic style where you're not as concerned, you want brush marks, you want artifacts, you know, and it may be too early in your painting development for you to even care about that right now. But the wet palette is really good at that. It's really good for... I started this troll with a wet palette, actually. I set up his blends and his shadows and stuff like that. I set that up with the wet palette. But then when it came time to do the details, like these gemstones and stuff, and even like the finer highlights on his skin, I switched over to the well palette again. I'm just trying to mix a bit of a brown here. So orange plus black plus a touch of red. Because I want a dark shadow and I need it to be brown. Yeah, it's a good brown. So it turns out that mixing Dungeon Gray and Goblin Skin and Kobold Scale gives you a pretty decent brown right out the bat. And I can use that as my shadow for my bone down here on the bottom. Because remember, I've got to be dramatic here. Because the rest of the troll is very dramatic. So I've got to be dramatic on the bone also. So I'm going to grab some of my bone shadow and I'm going to mix it with that brown and work it down. I could also just wet blend with the brown on the bottom of the bone. Yeah, no problem, Purse Art. I teach a lot of beginner and intermediate painting because I enjoy it. So I put a lot of thought into like what will help you learn. And the advantage of trying more than one palette, just like the advantage of trying more than one style of brush, is that you kind of learn what works for you. So let's see here. If we've got the light coming down here, that's about the right. It's about the right shadow there. There's going to be a shadow over here. So now I'm going much darker with my shadow, right? Because I remembered that, oh wait, I've got a lot of dark shadows on this troll. So I have to, right? I need to. I've committed to doing this dramatic light sourcing. I can't just do it on the troll and not do it on the bone. Now we need a little bit of wet blending here. And my nose is tickling me, so I might have to grab a Kleenex really quick. Yeah, that's the problem with the bigger wells, right? Right, Dragon? Mine is really... I couldn't do without this sucker. When I try to go back to a bigger well palette, it just doesn't work. So, I totally understand it. 1 second, guys. Excuse me. Got a little bit of an itchy nose this morning. Must be something in the air out there. It is a little bit warmer today, so it is possible that there's stuff getting kicked into the air. Alright, so we're dirtying up our bone a bit. But yeah, the well palette I just find useful when you don't understand paint consistency at all, and you usually don't when you start painting, unless you're coming from another artistic discipline that taught you about it. It's just so much easier to kind of be able to add drops of water, see the results, you know, figure it out, and then work on, you know, other stuff. So the troll is so dark that this bone is showing up really, really much lighter than it is on the camera. There it is, a little bit better. Cedar pollen, yeah. Yeah, they're big. Yeah, those cheap palettes totally have huge wells. You're right. Alright, so now I'm going to take some really dark brown, actually, and put it way down here. Sometimes I'm really tentative, and it's something I work with myself for a lot of the time. But I tend to be really tentative about adding dark shadows, which is part of why I wanted to paint this model the way I did, is to force myself to do it, to do dark shadows and bright highlights. So this is, it's also a challenge model for me. I've been doing a bit of that lately, just forcing myself to try different stuff. Get out of the comfort zone a bit. So what I want to do is I want to figure out the zones of this, like the light and dark zones of this bone, before I start worrying about texture. Texture is the last thing I'm going to add. First, you need the lights and darks. You need to understand kind of the surfaces of the bone and have mapped them out with some shadow and highlight. There can even be some darker browns up on the top surface a little bit if you mix them in a bit, just because there can be fissures in the bone or stains on the bone. So you can feel free to do that sort of thing. You may wipe out a bit of it when you go in with your highlights just because, but I want to bring out a little bit more of that. So you know, as you see that as we darken it down, you can see more details on the bone. And I'm trying to keep it kind of dark on the side here, but I do want to bring out that little knobby consistency. So kind of a dance back and forth at this point with my wet blending. And by wet blending, I mean I've got the colors are both wet, and I'm just kind of smushing them together with the tip of my brush. So I tend to do a lot of small spot wet blends like this, just to get a good start on the blending. You kind of have to watch it. If you start stripping up paint, you've got to stop, which I'm just starting to see, so I need to stop it. Back off, let it dry, and go back in. But I've got a little bit more definition on that there. I need to still get darker shadows. I do need to add a little bit of water to that brown too. One sec. Don't want my colors to dry out. So adding water is definitely a thing. And for people out there like Purs who may be relatively new and mostly working with the wet palette but thinking about trying the well palette, do be aware that to make it work really well, you've got to use a lot of paint. You've got to use blobs. I usually go with at least 4 to 5 drops of paint, and then I am adding at least 2 drops of water. So I'm going with like minimum 6, maximum more like 10 or 12, but around the average about 8 drops of fluid between the paint and the water when I'm doing these. And the reason you do that is with these small wells, you fill them up like, you know, you get a fairly deep puddle, and that limits the surface area that you're exposing to the air. So that means that after you mix your paint up just the way you like it, that it's going to evaporate slower. So it stays at the consistency that you want it for longer. So that's the key to using this, and that's why I like these smaller wells, because the smaller well limits the surface area even more, and it stays wet exactly at the consistency I need it for longer. I always refer people, if you haven't done Master Series, the starter set is a good buy, Clover. Otherwise, most utility colors, I mean, I use about between 75 and 100 regularly. That's what I have in my little utility drawer down here. Like, so really what you should ask me if you just want a few colors is you should say, what's your favorite blue? What's your favorite red? You know, like, I can do that a lot easier. It would take me a while to recite 100 colors. If you don't have walnut brown, get it. If you don't have pure white, you need to get it right away. pure white is the only white ever in the universe. Pure white is the white. Trust me. So if you don't have pure white, get it. If you don't have walnut and brown liner, get them. If you don't have creamy ivory, get it. Brush on sealer is useful for building washes and things. Hey Ash, how's it going? Yeah, but otherwise, Clover, usually I'd recommend colors out of the Bones range these days. I'm using a lot of them. But there's still key colors that I use, and almost all the ones I just mentioned to you actually are from Core. Actually, all of them are. So you'll notice I still use, like, it's not a coincidence that when I say, you know, the colors, I say I use a lot of Bones, but then the colors that I name that are the core colors that I use that my painting style relies on are all from the Core range. So I'm going to darken down these shadows even more, guys. I want to see how that's starting to come out. See that definition we're getting now. And happy holidays. Yes, everybody who just has come in since the beginning when we were saying happy holidays to all of our Reaper fandom. So since I am timid about shadows, it takes me a while to get there, but I am forcing myself to push these darker and darker. And in reality, I probably need to get out the very darkest shadow that we used on Mr. Troll so that I can throw that in here as well. Because this brown, though it's nice, is not like nearly as dark as some of the other shadows. Now, the bone is going to be a little bit reflective, but it's probably also going to be a bit dirty. So I do feel like I need a little bit of a darker hue on it for the really, really lower areas. So I'll probably get out black indigo because that's what we've been using for a shadow color. Technically, I think I used a little walnut somewhere. And walnut would be the better color here. But black indigo might help pull it back. Oh, good. Good, Ash. Excellent. Good, good, good. Yay. Aren't the streams when you feel like you really did good work the best? Like, those are the best streams, period. Where is my indigo? Pardon me, guys. Gotta take off the ye old glasses here so I can actually see far away. And look for my black indigo. There it is. Yay! Yeah, Tanzia is optional for me. I actually, if I was going to go for 2 greens to start people out on, I'd actually say Ancient Oak and Naga Green. Because if you mix them, you get actually a really nice, vibrant green. More vibrant than you would ever think out of looking at Ancient Oak. But then you set up, if you do a 50-50 mix, you get a nice greens triad right there. And then you can mute it out or not by adding more stuff. So I actually think that in that case, I wouldn't go with Tianzia if I was recommending a setup green for somebody. Yeah, and the paint sets in Bones 5, since you still can pledge for them, there's an excellent, it really is good money spent at this time because it's still, cheaper than it's going to be when it comes out. I'm going to mix up. Yeah, me too, Inara. And it's funky because it's like I had this mental concept of it, but I didn't have a physical representation of it, so I had to sit and mix greens for a while until I'm like, that's it, that one. It was really hard to get it that proper mix of bluish, greenish, grayish, right? It's a really masculine green. Guys love it. Like, every guy I know, except maybe David. I've never run it by David. He probably wouldn't like it because it was muted. He tends to like more vibrant colors so he can mix with them. But I find it's a very useful mixing color. So I'm glad you like it, Inara. And David is totally probably not. He's got his headphones on. He is working. He's either working or he's watching one of the Complexity Limited try to get like a world first kill on on Denathrius. It's either he's either watching WoW or he's working, and I don't know which. Alrighty, so we've got good things here now. So we've got our medium brown, which I also can use to do the belt here, and I can use this. It's a funky color, But let's see how it works. Like, let's mix these two. This is Black Indigo. It's a color that's coming out with Bones 5. And yeah, if I mix it with this brown, it darkens down to like a gray, a black almost, which is perfect. Like, that's what I want. I want a near black that I can use to make some really dark shadows on this bone. So that's perfect then. That was a good choice. So yeah, it's going to be very dark when I first put it on. I can thin it down a little bit more if I want it to blend in a little bit better. Or I can just do some more wet blending with my my brown that I created. But yeah, I want to talk about palette a little bit more, and how when you choose a limited palette, if you find a palette, when you find that you default to certain paints, let's just start on that. It's going to change what your painting style looks like. Because part of your painting style that you are slowly developing as you are a new or intermediate level painter is color choice. And the colors that you tend to use and the mixes that you tend to do can really make your work look unusual or a little bit different. Like, some people might say that your reds are different, that you do your reds differently than anybody, you know, or maybe it's your greens because you like to mute out your greens a little bit, or you like them a little blue, you know, stuff like that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, these actually, technically, part of this was with Knoll Pelt, and part of it was mixing Ogre Skin into the Troll. You can get very similar colors. It's a little bit different. Depends on if you want a more golden highlight or if you're looking for more of a green. It kind of does look like a tooth, and it might be Podell. It's Jason, so he would have based it on something. It could either be at one of the big. I guess it makes sense the way it's modeled that it's a tooth. Either way, it's made of bone, and so we shall paint it thusly. But I'm betting that the part that would normally be all polished has been, like, put down on the ground and stuff. So I think it's probably good to make the bottom part dirtier rather than paler. I think it's bone. I really feel like it's bone. And it could be a gourd? I don't know. The only way to know is to ask Jason. And we have a Bob and Julie, but we don't have a Weeby on the stream right now. Jason's probably working. Alrighty, so I'm dirtying that down with my brown. I'm getting some texture going up here. It's got a cork in the top, so it's, I mean, it could be a sack, but you can paint it however you like. It looks bone to me, so, as Yennefer. It could have a gremlin in it. Yeah, the bottom does look like a molar. Well, a tooth will naturally hollow out, though, because the interior is, you know, like blood vessels and the soft tissues, so. So this could be any of the above. I have chosen to paint it bone colored because I wanted kind of to put some neutrals down here, not to distract, but just some interesting, I found this to be an interesting detail. So people can, the way I'm painting it, with the color that I'm painting it, it could be a gourd or a sack or a bone or a tooth. It could be any of these things, as those things come in these colors. So this is the cop-out. This is the cop-out choice of color for this model. I don't have to commit to what it is. Actually, if I do bone texture on it, I will be. So the real challenge would be, am I going to use bone texture or leather texture? I really do feel it's like just the end of a bone, though. I feel like it's a bone that's been broken into. And I'm going to make it dirty up here because that's where his big paw would be grabbing it. Although, with the size of his paw, it's like he'd have to pinky and thumb it. So he's probably drinking from his drinking bone, you know, with his pinky out. That's what I'm thinking. This troll, totally pinky. Right, that's what I was thinking, Twisted Oma. That's exactly what I was thinking, is that it was the end of a bone after the marrow was sucked out. Which is totally a trollish thing to do, right? So, could be. Let's see here. And I didn't paint the back of it, as you can all see. So I was distracted with getting the front to look right. So let's us do that. But there's a shadow coming down here, right? Because of his arms. So we're going to right away reach for some of our darker colors. Make the back of this bone a little darker. We want our shadows to be consistent. It lets us blend and make more interesting colors. He's a cultured troll. He could be. He's got all these fancy bling on him. Who knows? For a troll, he could be quite worldly and intelligent. All right, so put a little bit of the black indigo there to separate out these areas. And I think I'm going to make the top here. The top's going to be a cork. The area just below it is going to be bone. And then the rest is going to be leather. So I'm going to use the same color for the cork and the leather. But I'm going to highlight them with different colors, which is going to make them look different. This has been a fun project, this troll. Kind of need to find another big baddie to work with. Kind of waiting for the right model to come along. Some of the frost giants are just way too, there's too much on them. It would take forever. I like this guy because he's a nice compromise between detail and simplicity, right? Because he's simple. He's got a lot of skin, but he's complicated. He's got gemstones and the skin has a lot of musculature, and so it's... Yes, it is very easy to meet the free shipping, that's for sure. All right, let's grab our bone color and go in there with that. We have very little room to have this color read correctly. So we'll have to block in all the leather and see what we can do. Probably need to go darker. Because when you have a very small surface that you're painting, if you want if the color of the surface to show up, you usually have to go a little bit darker and richer or more saturated. Like with the eyes, I'll go more saturated, but not darker. Like I'm almost leaning toward red, guys. Like I was gonna do yellow, but I feel like the yellow won't transmit very well because they're so small. Because it's so hard to get a really light color to read correctly when it's very small. So I think I might just go for red. Yeah, but they've been out of stock on it. Is it in stock, Chibi? The problem with the Fungus Queen is that, like, she's been out of stock forever. And then when she comes back in, she sells out again. But if she's in stock, I can look at her. She would be a good one. You just bought it? Alright, let me make a note. Let me just paint a note because, well, I don't have a pen right now, but I have a piece of paper and a brush. Fungus Queen. Because I do like her. She's cool. And it would be neat to do a different mushroom take on her. And see if we can make it work. I have to put a Reaper order in anyway, because there's some paint I need. Because I'm running out of ruddy leather, and we all know what that means. Panic. Alright. This bone is coming along really nice, guys. I like the warm color. I like this bone triad I made up. It's working really well. Currently in stock. Awesome, Chibi. I'll just put in an order today. I'll have to figure out what I want real quick. I've got a ton of character models now and NPC models, so I probably should look carefully at some of the bigger monsters, because after Troll is done, I want to be able to put another monster in, kind of where he is. So that we can keep the types of models that we work on varied. There, dirtying up that bone. Now, if I want to put some bony texture on this, I'm going to start streaking. Streaking the paint strokes, that is. Going vertical with them, because the bone's grain would be that way. So make streaky little brush strokes. This is where you want to show. Texture is great because it lets you show your brush strokes and not take a bunch of flack about it. Doing little streaks. So since I'm up to the highlights now I'm starting to worry about texture. But you don't, when you're first starting, you just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it for the shadows. Get your lights and darks set up and your colors where you want them, and then start thinking about texture. It's huge. Isn't that the huge one? I don't want anything that big. Nothing that big. That model just begs for an airbrush. It's monstrously huge last I checked. I am very happy that the new dragons from Bones 5, those will be interesting. I might actually grab a dragon and just try to paint it in all sorts of different colors to make it interesting. So maybe we'll actually throw a dragon into the rotation other than Gemstone Dragon. He's over there, but Gemstone Dragon is very complicated. I don't want to work on him until a little bit closer to Bones 5 release. Yeah, it's a massive. It's huge. It's like 5 times or more. It's huge. I've seen that Cobra. That is one of the things I have seen in Ron's office before I left. So, or on the Reaper table in the streaming room, in the studio. Yeah. It's just like I'd never do Maldrakar on stream. Too big. Too big, too much. It would take so long to show progress. And that can bore people. And I want to do a variety of things just to help. I know we get a lot of new people on the stream, people who are new to the hobby or coming back to it after a very long time, and so much has changed as far as the paints and how we do stuff now. So I do want to make sure we're always covering a variety. The Fungus Queen's a good suggestion, though. I'll totally look at her and a couple others. The other nice thing about the Fungus Queen is I can talk about some texture there, too. And some lighting. She's a difficult one. Yeah, it's crazy. 8 inches tall. It's just too much. It's a monstrous snake. I'll have to do some touch-ups after this on this troll. Maybe Ron will get this troll. I wonder if he wants it. He probably has a great version painted by Michael Proctor already. But this troll needs to be somewhere. Alright, so that's a nice belt color. We would have either had to go really, really dark, or we need to go lighter. And so I've decided to go a little bit lighter, but I don't want it too light because I don't want it to distract, right? So it's a nice warm counter, and it's also reinforcing our secondary triad. So remember I talked about how we're doing kind of a green, orange, purple color scheme on this troll? Well, the brown counts as an orange, and it in fact was made with a bunch of orange by mixing a bunch of orange in. So it's a good choice for this. Now, this does actually dip and move with the musculature under it. So I do need to shade it. So I'm going to grab... I don't want to repeat models on the stream, GB. Again, we got to mix it up. We got to keep it interesting and fresh. So... And also, there's the fact that I just get bored if I'm repainting a model. Like, it's so rare for me to want to do a repaint. Usually when I've done a model, I've done it in the color scheme I most wanted to paint it in the first time out. So you see, are we blocking in our shadows there? So you can see the shadows. I can see the dips in the leather corresponding to the dips in the muscle and the spine here. So what I'm doing is I'm bringing in my black indigo and mixing it with my brown a little bit to get that darker grayed out color. And I'm doing that. Oh, giving it to Ron. Why should he settle for one version? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if Proctor did the troll, I'm certain that it was amazing, because this is the kind of model that Michael really excels at, I think. Some of his monster models are just fantastic. I feel like he could easily out-troll me. See what I did there? I say that with the double entendre meant. So putting a little bit of the lines that Jason sculpted onto there. Yeah, but then I've got three half-painted models, Inara. That's the problem with that one. And I hate that sort of thing. It kills my soul. Like, I've realized over the course of figuring out what this show kind of wanted to be that I really hated when I was just working on one model, only doing one demo thing on it, and then putting it away. You know, I really wanted to work on models that I liked enough to go to finish, because that rewards me. Like, I find that very rewarding. And so doing a partial thing like that, I would rather just get out my my watercolor paper and sketch the color schemes, and then we choose one from that. That I think would be more effective. And it would make me happier. Actually, I was just coaching one of my patrons the other day, and he linked a blog where somebody had done, I think it was Roman Lapat, had shown a model painted by two different painters. And actually, Jeremy Bonamont has done this on his blog too. But they talk about how color choices completely change the mood of a piece. If you Google Roman Lapat and Seeking Refuge is the name of the bust. It's a little alien girl with a teddy bear, or a plushie at any rate. It's probably not a bear. Looks like more like a cat or a wolf. So Roman Lapat, Seeking Refuge. It should give you his blog post, and the post title is something like how changing color changes mood, or something like that, or makes a dramatic difference in the feel of a piece. And he talks about it. He and the other painter, whose name escapes me, they painted the bust in very different skin colors, very different clothes colors, very different styles. And the bust looks it looks quite different from their two takes. And they each of them talk about it in the blog, talk about how they picked the colors, why they picked the colors, what the emotional impact they feel it has on the piece. So that if you are interested in that, Inara, I would Google that. I found that to be a really cool and interesting blog post. And the bust is cute. Like, the most annoying thing about going to that blog post is that you will want to paint the bust, and then you'll find out it's out of print. Yeah, massive voodoo blog. Thanks, Steve Clearman. All right, Nomad Zeke. Merry Christmas and happy holiday of your choice. And I'll see you next week so we can wish each other Happy New Year, like, appropriately as we get closer to that. But yes, Merry Christmas. Everybody, please, who is taking off, enjoy your holiday. So I'm going back in with some lighter browns, guys, to bring this up a little bit. Jason sculpted some definite, like, creases in this belt, so I'm trying to not lose those while I get my shadows laid in. Let's see here. Blend these in over here. This is going to get dark, so I got to put heavy shadows in. And we're just going to block in. Make things a little darker as we get around under this arm toward we get this heavy shadow section. On the heavy shadow section, I'm actually going to block it in black indigo. So it's going to go purple at first. But then we're going to put some brown on top of it. Because to do things in the shadow, in this deep heavy shadow, and keep transmitting this idea, we really have to start really dark. And we have to keep it really dark. So even though I'm going to highlight it with the brown, I'm going to start even darker so that it works. Everything has to shift a step when you're painting in shadow. So your previous base color maybe becomes your highlight, or even your shadow color becomes your highlight, depending. I'm going to do a kind of a spot mix here and get it really grayed out. then I can highlight it. It was a little bit too intense when I was just using the black indigo. There we go. It's a grayed out brown. That'll be great. And actually, I'll put that a little bit on the other side too. And a little bit in here because it's the shadow next to the container. Once everything is released, I can get whatever I want, Rax. But I'd have to look at it to see what kind of topics I would be able to cover on it. Usually when I'm looking at a model, I'm looking, you know, for a couple of different things. I'm looking for a good, clean sculpt. I'm looking for something that I really like. Because if I really like the model, I'm going to do a better job on it. And I'm going to be more excited about painting it, which is, you know, double win. And 3, I'm looking at what can I demo on this model? What interesting pieces are on this model where I can talk about, you know, something a little bit different? Is this model too close to something else? Like, I don't think I would do another Nagendra because I already did Snack Lady, and I don't know that I would have anything else to talk about unless I decide to do scale patterns on one. So, you know, like that. Like, it'd have to depend on my take. If I felt I could teach something unusual on the model, and if I really liked it. I don't remember the raccoon model, so I'd have to go look. But I'll be looking at everything that comes out, pretty much. I go over to Reaper every few weeks or a month to look at the newest releases, to see, you know, kind of like vet out, kind of look at possibilities for the stream. But right now, the last order I put in with Reaper really was monstrous, and it has a lot of character figures on it. So, like I said, mostly I'm going to be looking at monsters. Well, yeah, there's tons of cute, super cute models. But whether, you know, you could look at a cute model and just kind of go, meh, then somebody else absolutely adores it. So, whether I want to paint it is like, do I think it's amazing? You know, does it make me really, really go, ooh, I know how I want to paint that, you know? We did think about making it a points thing at one point. I think we kind of discussed spending a crap ton of channel points to choose a model for Anne to paint. This is fraught with peril because, like I said, if it's a model I don't like, then I won't do as well on it. And it also may turn out to be like something where we're just going over subject matter again that I'd previously gone over. But it's something we could do with channel points, so who knows. Yo, Achilles Blade, what's up? We are doing trollish things today. We are, I thought it was a bone, but it might be a tooth. It might also just be a sack. Nobody knows, but we're painting it like it's bone. And then I was working on leather. We are essentially blocking in a bunch of stuff on our lovely troll. Yeah, that's true, Esther Jean. That would be a good one. That would be a good way to do it. Justin, are you paying attention? Disembodied voice is silent. I caught him out. He was secretly reading memes. Anyway, that is a good idea, Esther Jean. That, you know, maybe I choose 3 models and then you guys get to spend channel points to vote. That would involve everybody and it wouldn't just involve one person, so that's why I like that idea a little bit more. Yeah, I like that idea, Reaper John, because unlike just allowing, like, because you know, I only switch models usually when, like, you know, lately what we've been doing is switching models when I finish one. Then I add a new model into the rotation. But that means that there isn't very often a chance for somebody to spend, you know, their points. And if we're trying to give people a chance to spend their points, maybe it makes more sense to, like, maybe people could also spend points to nominate models until we have, like, 12 nominees. And then I could pick my top 3 choices, and then people could spend points to vote. Like, it could be kind of like that, too. That way the people with a lot of points who really wanted to influence it could spend a big chunk to get their model in the running, and then people can spend smaller amounts to vote. Like, that would be a good permutation on that. Yeah. John regular. I know that John always listens to the stream, so I knew that even if Disembodied Voice was cleaning the studio, that John would probably catch it. But yeah, other than the one that's, I don't know if you want to tie. I know you were working on the other system, but I'm thinking like existing channel points. It would be a way to have people use up their existing channel points, unless you were working on a plan to kind of port those over into the Reaper system. I'm not sure if you were, but I'm willing to do something like that if you guys want to do something like that to get people kind of to spend their channel points before we start the new system, for example. That would be a way to do it. Oh, okay. Oh, John has a show in the works.
Yeah, I just wanted to pop in and we could bounce ideas back and forth. I do like this idea about choosing the models. I think that is a great idea.
Right.
The show that I have in place, or not in place, the show that I've talked about is called, I'm going to call it Wheel-O-Wisp, like Wheel-O-Wisp, like a play on words.
Yeah.
And you basically have a wheel where chat gets to spin the wheel. And each week we have different, it's like a game show. Think of it like a game show.
Yeah.
So each week we have a different streamer on or a different painter, and the wheel spins and it'll say like, paint with your left hand for the next minute.
Oh, it's a Sophie Says.
Yes, essentially it's Sophie Says, but people spend points to spin the wheel, essentially.
Oh, to make it evil. Yeah, yeah.
And it'll be a collection of points. It won't be like spend 2,000 points to spin the wheel. It'll be like we have to collectively spend an amount, let's say like 20,000 as a collective amount.
I see. So a goal.
So that,
you got a goal. Yeah.
Yeah. So people with 100,000 points don't just spin the wheel 1,000 times.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Exactly. No. Yeah. It has to be a certain number of people and then a certain number of points. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. That could be fun.
And you can only have like 3 or so at a time. So like if you're painting with your left hand, you have your right eye covered and you're painting with the color blue for the next minute or 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But then everything that's spun after that is in the queue. So once the left hand one is done, then it pulls up the next thing that you have to do.
Yeah. Francis has a question though. What about the old points? Are they just going to go poof, or are we going to try to work them off?
These points that we're talking about for the wheel show and choosing the models is going to be the current points.
Okay.
The new points, me and Justin will talk more about it later, but nothing is in place or moving forward with it right now. It's just an idea. We want to tie the Reaper Mini website into the Twitch chat kind of thing. So the more time people spend watching, they'll earn points for Reaper Mini, and then they can spend those points for like discounts or certain models or something like that.
Right,
so,
yeah. And that's a brilliant, I mean, that's a lot like Overwatch League points, right? For like watching Overwatch League. So, you get to use them to buy skins or whatever. So yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I just wanted to pop in and kind of give an update on that.
Yeah, it's much easier to just like hear it than to type all of it for sure. Okay, cool. Thanks, John.
All right. Bye.
Yep. Yeah, it would be torturous, Tashi, you're right. I mean, but that would be the fun part, right? People like to see painters be tortured. I've never loved doing that sort of thing as a painter, but if you enter into that knowing what it's going to be, and knowing that you're not going to see great painting, at least some people. I'm sure there are some people out there. I'm pretty sure Derek Schubert could take any curveball tossed at him and still turn out with a brilliant model. But I would likely end up with a train wreck. Yeah, I don't think you're going to be amazed, Chibi. It's, when you've got that much thing going on, like, it's really, you just expect to see the funny. It's not, at that point, as a painter, I would stop trying to do an amazing job just because, it's impossible. At that point, I would just want to enjoy the silly also, so I would be more likely to paint something very silly and not great. If I were one on that show. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would just be disappointed in it. That makes me sad, so. I've never liked that sort of challenge thing, although I did do... Oh, yeah. Well, and you wouldn't finish it on the show, Francis, probably. We used to have an evil clown, which I think was Laszlo, back when we were doing the Design Your Own Mini. But I really don't like clowns. I mean, not even I don't have a creep out about clown thing. I just really never liked them. They were my least favorite part of the circus because I was all about the animals. I was like, get these stupid clown things off the stage and bring back the tigers. Who wants clown things? Not me. Lost a little bit of my shadow there, so I'm bringing it back in. Want a nice dark shadow. Bob has done 2 evil clowns. Yeah, sure. There's Bob doing the least important part of the circus. Do you agree with me, Julie? Because you're an animal lover too. Like, who the heck came up with these clown things? Why do we even need them in a circus? Like, bring back the animals. Alright, so we're just bringing in more shadows, more shadows. More and more shadows here on our pretty bone thing. I'm liking it. So I'm kind of going back and forth between the leather and the bone at this point. I'm going to make a couple of little like cracks almost to make it look like there's been stresses on the bone here. Which is one of the ways that you suggest it's bone. I wish it wasn't so bleached out, but sadly there's so much dark around it. I'm afraid it's going to read a little bit lighter. But you guys can see how I'm putting those cracks up in there with my medium color, my medium brown here. Which is a lot like driftwood brown, actually. All clowns are evil. Yes, Julie. All right, good. Just want to make sure I'm like, you know, we agree on that. Yeah, I agree, like, that it's not ideal. But at the same time, John David, I don't know. It's like zoos. It's that weird... Do you also protest zoos or just circuses? Because zoos actually do conservation efforts on animals. So I can't, there's like 2 sides to that story. But I don't know. Circuses, I mean, some of them have a bad rep for really not taking good care of their animals. Alright, so now I'm doing even more fissures and lines. It's hard for you guys to see. Let me see if I get really close, if we can fill the screen with the bone and make it a little bit... Yeah, you guys can kind of see there. Yeah, most zoos are great. I was going to say, zoos these days do a lot of reproductive and conservation work with endangered species to try to make sure that, you know, like, they're reproducing, help them reproduce in captivity, at least, if they have problems in the wild. Yeah, a lot of animals would be extinct now without zoos, I agree. The inbreeding calculator that I do for my dog club is one that's used by zoos to manage populations. So I'm doing more. I'm always going in the same direction with this texture, so it's consistent. Yeah, I mean, private zoos and public zoos are a different thing, right? Yeah, it's kind of like they're trying to expose. Lately, I noticed National Geographic's making an effort toward exposing that sort of thing a lot, which I approve of. Raising public consciousness on how poorly animals are treated in some of the performing or, you know, get close to animals type exhibits that aren't that are more privately run, shall we say. So I'm trying to go over my texture, make real fine lines, make it look more and more soft. Yeah, good, John David. Excellent. It's okay. I think we can all agree, John David, that we all love animals. Even, it's hard to have an opinion on something, a constructive opinion on something, if you haven't done the research behind it. So, I think it's hard for me to speak to circuses because I've never really researched circuses, but I've read a lot lately about private zoos and how bad they are. Not Tiger King is kind of that train wreck incident, but swimming with dolphins organizations and things like that can really not be very good for the animals. So, yep. That's the problem with starting a conversation that can be it can be interesting, but it can also be very polarizing, right? And it's hard because most of the people, any given conversation, I don't care what topic you do, most of the people aren't going to know a lot about it. They're only going to know kind of what they've kind of heard, right? And they're going to speak from that. And it may not be at current information or even the best information, or it may be, people butt heads about it and it's needless. So yeah, we do try to avoid the incendiary stuff.
And I will say here to kind of chime in, by the way, that as per the rules in chat anyway, zero politics tolerance is definitely in place. However, the caveat to that is in this circumstance, this is a perfect example of completely acceptable political talk because everyone, who participated shared their opinion. There was no name calling. There was no screaming. There was no upset passion. There was nothing like that. And that's completely acceptable.
Yep.
So if all conversations can go like this, then it's completely allowed.
Exactly. Keep it civil.
Otherwise, I don't care if you're bug lips. I'll ban you, I promise. I'm just kidding. I would never ban bug lips.
We can't make that a hashtag? I love bug lips too. I know. I just like to tease about it.
Absolutely, Chibi. That's exactly. The problem is being an adult on Twitch is definitely in short supply, particularly on Twitch.
Yeah.
But to be fair, the average age of streamers and or viewers on Twitch is definitely in the lower 20s to upper teens. So it's very young. So
what I'm doing here now, guys, we all, be adults. Don't be rude. Yeah. And sometimes understand that even your own, you have to sometimes question your own beliefs too.
You should always question your own beliefs at all times. I think that's important to growth. I think that as soon as you stop that, you stop growing, period.
Right.
It just, personally, I think that it's important.
Yeah, and you always have to question where you got those beliefs too, in my opinion. But yeah, so what I'm doing here, guys, is I'm making kind of a continuing fissure crack that going up the side here. Just to make it look like there's a flaw in the bone, just a little bit, in the outside enamel there. Tashi. Yeah, as long as you always come from a place, it's cool to be passionate, as long as you never jump on people for disagreeing. The one thing I never want to see is somebody saying that somebody else is an idiot because they don't agree with them in my chat. I never ever want to see that kind of talk. Always respect where the other person is coming from. If you made that statement about circuses, but then somebody in the chat, grew up, their parents were in a circus, they grew up partially in a circus, they have strong, passionate feelings that are positive about circuses, then, you're never gonna meet in the middle on that. You just, at that point, it's just, okay, guys, let's all just back off and go to a different topic, right? But, there's always the chance that you run into that. So I never want to see anybody doing a right, you're right, I'm wrong, or you're wrong, I'm right, rather.
The best stuff you can hope for there is gaining clarity and understanding of either side, and that in virtually all arguments in the known world, there's always going to be some sort of silver lining on either side, no matter how passionate you are, right?
Yeah, right. I mean,
There are a few exceptions to that, I think. We will not get into it.
right? Yeah, we don't want to open those cans of worms.
Correct, but I would say you can count on one hand the number of topics that doesn't apply to. But for the most part,
Yeah. So there we go. So see all the nice bone texture, guys. Now if I back up.
Good luck, Twisted.
Yeah, good luck, Twisted. So then we back out, and you can see that texture still there. And that gives it just a little bit of extra interest, right? It's not just a blob of cream anymore. It has, like, features. It's got dark sections and light sections. It's dirty on the bottom. Yeah, right. No pineapple on pizza discussion, because I'm a pro pineapple on pizza person, and I know Justin. He gets passionate about pineapple and its evilness.
Hey, listen, it's a fantastic fruit by itself, or even with some cottage cheese. It does not belong on hot mozzarella cheese. All right.
I'm not going to say a word, Justin. I'm going to agree to let you be wrong. Yeah, I'm a stinker. Sorry.
I will say yes, grilled pineapple is insane. So you know what? I think I would eat pineapple on pizza as a completely acceptable topping personally, if it were grilled beforehand. I think.
Interesting. Yeah, you know what? I could see that, because really it's so juicy when you put it on, like, fresh. Like, it just tends to weep its juices onto the pizza, and that is less than optimal. So yeah, I can embrace that. I can embrace that thought, because grilled pineapple is already going to have a lot of its juices, pulled out, and it's going to be, it's going to have that right texture. Yeah, okay.
I think the only downside, and it is definitely one of the I can completely acknowledge the pairing, but one of the downsides to it though would be that usually when you grill pineapple, it loses a lot of its acidity and it becomes very sweet.
Yeah.
Which will work with the salty, the mozzarella, the low moisture mozzarella, but what you really want with that cheese, because that's what people have been combining over the years, is that acid, right?
Right.
You want the acid with the cheese, and you kind of lose that, but I think it would still be good.
Yeah, it's still, you don't lose all of it, so yeah, interesting. That's an interesting thought. All right, I've got to get the butt end of this.
Go ahead and test it for me and let me know.
We're considering that tomatoes, like, are poisonous to me, and I'm also low carb. Me making pizza anytime in the future is unlikely.
Well, I assumed you had some sort of super special, awesome recipe that you used.
I actually
you have a way around everything else. So
yeah, pizza is the one thing that I've just go to pesto for. Like, and pesto, it wouldn't be the same. I guess the other thing to remember on traditional pizza with pineapple is you are getting acidity from the tomatoes. So not getting as much acidity from the pineapples then may not be as much of a deal breaker if your tomato sauce is very acidic. But it's just a thought, because you do have a couple of sources of acidity there. Not just one. So, yeah, I don't know.
Now I'm hungry. Thank you.
And now our work is done, right, guys? Everybody must come out. So I'm blocking in the back part of this, because, again, I was totally, like, obsessing on the front view and leaving the back view just to go hang itself. It is lunchtime. Yes, peace to all, and happy holidays, Shadow Raven. Yeah, pesto is the best. Fresh pesto is awesome. Right now, just finding good basil is a trial. We let our outdoor basil die. It was just not going to live through the freezing. Or near freezing temperatures. We'll go a little longer today because I started so late because of the Kiwi dog having issues this morning. There. Got a little bit. Just a little bit there. I only need a little bit of suggestion of texture. I need to make sure I've got kind of the bone outlined back there a little bit nicer. I actually just ordered a mortar and pestle today because I had ordered some spices for Indian cooking and it wasn't pre-ground, and so I was like, you know what? I want to use this, so I'm going to just bite the bullet and order a mortar and pestle.
Speaking of food, by the way,
yes.
Roseanne, I'm going to be making, I believe in the next week to a week and a half, somewhere in that time frame, probably when it gets really cold here again, I'm going to be making, for the first time ever, deer chili.
Ooh, venison chili. Yeah.
Yes,
I make that regularly. Oh, yeah. It adds a different element of flavor, for sure. Like, it's just a little bit, well, venison's a little bit gamey, so you get a slightly different flavor profile. I use a lot of fresh chili peppers that I roast on my cast iron.
Ooh.
Yeah, roast and peel them, kind of traditional. And so
Do
I use
you
a lot of
use
actual.
do you use 100% venison, or do you mix in with like
Oh, mix in. It's
ground beef? Or
50-50. Yeah, ground beef usually. You want a
okay, so
little.
I need to mix then, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I would. I would. I mean, it depends, right? Because some venison is less gamey than others. Like the Texas venison tends to be very, very gamey, is what I was told, because of what the deer eat in Texas. A lot more shrubbery and stuff like that. Whereas, you know, the whitetails in Wisconsin tend to be a bit less gamey. Still gamey, but not quite as much. So it really depends. But in Texas, they usually recommend a 50-50 mix with ground beef.
Okay. Do you use would you use a fattier ground beef, or would you use leaner? I prefer leaner personally,
Yeah,
but
I think I would use a leaner one. You're going to be cooking it for a long time. The venison itself is lean, so it's your call. You could either use a fattier beef to kind of cover for the venison being so lean, or you could, you know, go with the leaner beef and just add your fat, which is what I tend to do because I want to put healthier fats in there. Like I still want some.
oh, I didn't even think about that. John Davis said I'll need more fat since deer typically have it's very lean. Although
Yeah, although
you,
chili, you're slow cooking it essentially. So
I was about to say I prefer to do my chili over the course of about 8 hours personally.
yeah. So I think you're gonna be fine. But yeah, normally, yeah, you're right, John David. It would be you would want to make up for the fats. But I personally like if I'm gonna add fat to it, I'd rather add a vegetable fat that's better for me and not have so many animal fats. So I'd rather use the lean version of the meat and just add some avocado oil or something to give it that fat, you know, to give it that texture. Depending on the meat, obviously. If it's duck fat is divine, and nothing shall be said against it. But there we go. I just had to get the back of that bone to show up right. But yeah, so it's really up to you and how you want to run it.
What I'm getting from that chibi is I should add bacon to my chili. I'll do
Oh,
that,
absolutely. No, yeah, chibi is absolutely correct.
I've never added bacon to chili. How would you? You
Okay.
wouldn't cook it first, would you?
Yes. Yeah, actually, Julia Child does this for her beef bourguignon, but you essentially blanch it. If you want to take a lot of the salt out of it, then you blanch it a little bit in boiling water, dry it off, throw it into the pot that you're going to make the chili in. I use my Le Creuset, and then just brown it, and the fat melts down, and that gives you fat in the pan for you to put your meat into. So, yeah, and if you want to, after you brown the bacon, you can scoop it out with a spoon and put it on a paper towel so it stays crispier. Then put your meat in and brown your meat. Then add your bacon back in and all your other ingredients, then simmer.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of bacon?
I tend to think for stews like chilies that thicker bacon works better, so thick cut. Lardons, French lardons are thick cut and about 1.5 inches long, so like they'll cut the bacon into 1.5 inch long things and do it that way, and then you get nice big pieces of bacon in your stew. I tend to like them a little smaller than that. I tend to cut them about 1 inch.
Yeah, I think I'd want bacon that was as close in consistency and size as the ground meat.
Right.
I think, well, mainly for my fiance, she's really a stickler for texture. I mean, people are, but she is really picky in terms of texture.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah, well, pork belly is bacon, so, you know, it makes sense that pork belly cubes would work too. I just have a hard time getting pork belly here, unless I order it online.
Now, Road Dog said hardwood smoked. What hardwood would you suggest, Ann?
Ooh, wow, that's a hard question. I mean, if you're going for the traditional, then you're probably looking for a hickory. I probably wouldn't use applewood because it's just not strong enough to give you any real flavor. I mean, applewood smoked bacon is like something that's popular, but it's a much milder smoky. Yeah, hickory. See, I think applewood is too mild, chibi. I think you'd lose it in a chili. Hickory, though, was strong enough. Yeah, I just can't get out to Asian markets right now, HM. I'm being pretty cautious out here. We've had like a big, well, like everywhere, we've been spiking, so I'm just staying at home. I am following the stay-at-home order because I don't want to get sick. I have a friend in Texas with COVID right now. So, you know, I don't really need to, I don't want to roll the dice. I'm doing the minimum outside of the house. So maybe after everything is like returned to semi-normal, I'll finally be able to get out to all the awesome Indian grocery stores and our local butcher that I've been just really wishing I could visit. but haven't really, wanted to risk. That and, what else was that we were talking about? Oh, getting goat for, like, curries, for Indian curries. But I would think I would rather just use lamb anyway. I like the flavor of lamb in a curry. Pecan smoked bacon. Interesting. I'm going to mesquite. Yeah, mesquite is nice. Mesquite and hickory are the two strongest, right? So, as we continue to talk about food, everybody's going to be so hungry after the stream. We're almost, speaking of. Oh, yeah. Pork belly's so good. The 5-spice rub that I used on my pork shoulder roast is actually one we used first on a pork belly. It's so good. It's like sriracha, soy sauce, and a 5-spice. It's so tasty. And then you do a sweet sauce for it. Oh. Load the car, drop, knock, and run. Yeah, I hear you, HM. Pork belly is super tasty. Alrighty. I think the only other thing I want to do is maybe block in brown on this fur, but I'm going to, again, take it up. And this is just an example of using, like, the same kind of paints to mix, like, 3 different colors, but they all go together because they all have the same pigments. And then what I'll do to make this different from the leather is I'll actually highlight it by adding more orange and white. So I'll bring it up to more of an orangey fur, sorry. We could do tiger stripes. Maybe I'll do kind of dull stripes on it. Doesn't have to be any, like, normal actual creature that exists in the world. It's definitely going to be dirty. It could be dirty tiger fur. Who knows? Maybe he lives in a jungle environment. Or a plains. I should share a recipe. I will say, guys, that, in the last couple years, I've really upped my game as a cook. Like, I was a terrible cook for so long, gosh, when I got out of college, and I was just awful. I just never really applied myself to it, but then I started learning to be a cook, like, maybe in the last decade, and now I feel like I have enough understanding to, like, tackle stuff, like, making really good Indian food and things like that. I'm really happy about it. I can make really good Asian food now, and I love, now that I know how to make ramen, I'm starting to use my Instant Pot more, and that's really cool. I asked for Instant Pot accessories for Christmas.
See, the Instant Pot's great. I just never really see a need or a drive to cook everything via pressure faster, because that's not always better, right?
I totally would have agreed with you, Justin, but, like, I did, what did I do the other day? My Moroccan lamb stew. It's a cinnamon curry lamb stew that I reconstructed after I had it in a restaurant in Santa Fe. And I had done that the long way for so long. And it, it has to cook for like 4 hours because it's lamb and you have to get it tender, right? So, but the other day, like I'd been wanting to make this for David, and I had the lamb leg, so I was like, oh, screw it. And I didn't have any time. So I threw it all into the Instant Pot, and it took an hour. And it was still great. I was mind blown, okay? Mind blown.
Okay, so I guess let me just to pick your brain a little bit on this. Was it as great in terms of, like, it was comparable, or did it meet the bar?
Oh no, it was identical in flavor. All of the spices like diffused really well actually through it because they got pressure cooked. And that was something I looked up because Indian food uses pressure cooking a lot. And so I actually kind of referenced my Indian cookbook to see, like, for the time frame and everything that I thought I should do it, and to make sure that putting the whole spices in was okay. But yeah, the flavor was wonderful, and the lamb was like fall apart awesome. Like, it was much more tender than I had managed to ever get it before. Like, probably the only downside, and I think I might just cook at low pressure maybe next time for just a little longer. I don't know. I'd have to figure it out, or I'd cook them separately. But the sweet potatoes that go into it, they maybe broke down a little faster. Even though I kind of, because I wanted to cook them fast. So they got added in and then a separate little pressure cook. It's like an art form. It's really weird. Like, it won't replace everything. I don't think I would ever do anything like really fancy like beef bourguignon in it. Like, where I really want to work with a Le Creuset and do all the beef browning, integrally and, and all the other stuff. But for certain things, I think it really makes it much easier if you're trying to like put together a really tasty dinner, but you have more limited time, right? Because usually I can only cook on the weekend. Like, I don't have the energy to cook during the week. So we tend to, do leftovers or David throws stuff together. We do burgers,
I'm just trying to, I guess, delineate between sacrifice, because there's always going to be a sacrifice.
Yeah,
right?
there's
no miracle, right? So, like, you still, I think that if I were going to cook a chili, a good example is chili, right?
Yeah.
If I were going to make a chili and then develop the flavors over the course of 8+ hours, right?
Right.
I just can't imagine, based on all the recipes I've seen and the chefs that I've read about that do it, because I mean I've done extensive chili research. It's specifically chili protein, but that the flavors that go into stuff like that don't quite develop. Like, they do develop, but they're not as complex as they would be 8+ hours later. Right.
I think with chili, that is a particular example that you are absolutely correct on, because the chefs that really do chili add specific spices at specific times in the course of the slow cook, because some spices are going to go a little bit bitter if they're cooked longer, and others, stuff like that. So you could do chili in the Instant Pot, but you might have to do it in a couple, and this is where it gets to be an art form with the Instant Pot. Like, you do the initial cook on high pressure, but then some recipes say let off the pressure, put in different ingredients, then do a low pressure cook for 5 minutes to integrate those ingredients. So that's how the Instant Pot people deal with that sort of thing. And then sometimes the last part is just simmering it for 5 minutes with a different set of spices. So you could do it. You could still do it faster. I don't know if it would work the same way, but you might be able to approximate it.
Right, because this most recent time when I made chili, I ended up basically re-seasoning and rebalancing it like 4 or 5 times over the course of it was about 9 or 10 hours.
And to really know, you'd have to do you'd have to get like the Instant Pot and do one half of the batch in that and do one half of the batch in the other thing, and then really compare them, right? You'd have to have an honest compare.
I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to, because here's the thing, what I love about the Instant Pot, I still don't have one because we have enough appliances as it is, but
right.
But basically what I do like about it is that you can brown meat in there and then also then turn it, like, that is one of the better things about it that I enjoy. It's just not, I guess my thing is I really like to work with protein.
Yep.
And unless I were going to try to make something that's otherwise sinewy, kind of like with your lamb chops or something, right? If I wanted to make it quicker and have it be tastier sooner, working with that protein it just makes sense in the Instapot on a normal day-to-day basis, right?
Yes.
But like typically with the other stuff, I don't mess with meats that I have to do that with. So I'll end up, most of my cooking is just in a cast iron skillet. Like it's hard for me to replace what I'm doing with something that's supposed to do it all and be quicker, right? Because of the amount of control I want.
Well, and I prefer the browning that I get in cast iron or in my Le Creuset, right? So if I really want some elegant browning on a piece, I'm going to go for those solutions and not brown it in the Instant Pot. But for things like Indian food, where you are dealing with lamb or you're dealing with tougher proteins, and you have a spice medley that you want to really integrate, it just seems to be like, and a lot of Indian recipes were developed with the slow cooker. Like, every Indian household had a slow cooker in the mid 1900s, because that just made it all easier. So I don't know. Yeah, it depends on the dish. Like I said, there are some dishes I do where you just don't need it, right? You don't need the food to do that. But I found that when I did the ramen, it really helped with the pork shoulder. It helped really make it fall apart, shred tender, and then putting that pork. The thing is, you can use it to cook your meat, but then you can do more stuff with your meat and put it in the oven to caramelize it and do stuff like that, right? So you can also think about the Instant Pot as a way to get to the meat consistency you want faster. Then you do the fancy stuff. So with the ramen, I did pork shoulder in the pot with the broth, took it out, and it just fell apart. So it was super easy to shred. Tossed it with some plum sauce, put it in the oven to caramelize on a sheet, and then that became the meat on top of the ramen. And it just was great. It was fantastic. So
I think that if you had a recipe that was really dialed in, like you knew exactly what it needed and you never had to touch it once it was started.
Yeah.
I think an Instapot is probably, there's nothing better than, or even not even just the Instapot, any pressure cooker, right? Like basically it would work perfectly for that role, because if you don't need to do any tweaking in the middle, because having to bring it down off of pressure and then take it back really messes with the cooking on a pressure cooker, obviously.
Well, it
So
does and it depends because, like I said, that there are a fair number of recipes that say cut off the pressure, and the thing is that it's got a quick release valve, right? So you can release the pressure fairly
true.
quickly, and then you go back and do other things under low pressure. So it seems to be pretty standard now with people who do a lot of instant pot cooking, just from what I've been reading. But we've gone way over talking about cooking. But I will say
We
that
have, you're right.
it's completely replaced the slow cooker. Like I was trashing my slow cooker anyway because the pot had gotten a crack. So then it was just like the Instant Pot is my replacement for the slow cooker. So I'm actually learning how to use it. But yeah, there's some things I think it'll never replace. But for lamb stew, man, I can get lamb stew in 1.5 hours instead of 4.5 hours. I'm going to do it.
You know what? Really, I might end up getting an Instapot, but really, literally only for one dish.
Yeah,
And that would be pork spare ribs, I think.
Yeah, it could do that really well.
I think that specifically for ribs that I don't want to cook on my grill for 6 hours or smoke on my grill, right? Like
Right.
I think it's the next best thing.
Yeah, maybe. And but be careful, Justin, because like I didn't use it at all. Like I owned this thing for a year and I hardly touched it. And then once I used it once for the ramen, then I was like, oh, and all the possibilities started springing into my head. And that's when I decided to do the lamb stew in it. And now I'm broken. Now I'm just like, okay, what else can I do in it? So yeah. Oh yeah, shredded pork shoulder, so good, Inara. You're so right.
But on that note, it seems like it's about time to wrap up here. And
yeah, and Chibi, I'm so sorry your oven is broken. That's hard. That's so hard during the holidays. I can't believe it. I'm so sad that you're going through that. Yeah, look up.
yeah, sorry about that, Chibi.
So anyway, guys, I was just using black indigo to do some shading on this. While as I'm talking to Justin, I totally go on autopilot and start painting things. But I'll use the same color to get over here and define these strands of leather that are tying up our little bone. But yeah, we made good progress today. Like it's almost complete. Like I'm gonna have to do on the next time we get to troll, I'm gonna have to highlight all the leather, figure out what we're doing with the fur and the cloth, and then we got to start talking about basing, like for serious. Here, let's zoom out. Zoom out. We were really zoomed in there. I kind of like the blue color on the loincloth, actually. Yes, I hope. Thank you, Val. Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy holidays. And all right, now you make me want to pull out some pork shoulder and pop it in the Instant Pot. They're like, these could use more work, Chia, the ones back here. But everybody else, all the little crystals, they're about as far as I want them to get. You don't want to toss a lot of time into these little babies. Because there's just not a lot of room to do the proper job that you can do on big crystals up top. So the only part where the crystals need a little bit more work is over here. But, otherwise, Mr. Troll is dangerously close to done. Dangerously close. There he is. Happy Rock Troll. Happy Rock Troll says, happy holidays, everybody. You want some of that prime rib. Yes. All right, who is there to raid out there, Justin?
I think we're going to raid Brush for Hire.
Brush for Hire. Awesome. Yes, Merry Christmas, Bob and Julie. Have a good one. All right, everybody. Well, we will be back. We will not have a stream tomorrow or the next day. We will be back on Monday after your holiday. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. And I will see you all then. Adios.
Thank you guys very much. We'll see you this afternoon for the last show before Christmas, and you guys can stop by, say hi to Luca, and we'll talk to each other one last time before we bring in the holidays here, guys. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you later.